So right now we're going to start lesson 6. We're going to start lesson 6. On Wednesday, we did a lot of lesson 5. Lesson 5 was to choose a storm drain. Send me a picture of your storm drain so that I could approve it. Now, some of you guys sent me pictures of storm drains that just weren't going to work. Weren't going to work at all. So, and I, replied, I gave you 0 and I replied like, okay, that's not going to work. Try something else, things like that. And what I did this morning was actually went to McFadden and I walked the neighborhood near McFadden. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of my students. Like, what are they going to come across while they venture out if they live near McFadden? So a couple things. So let's see. A good storm drain, for you to adopt would look like the ones on the form. So like this would be a good one to adopt, or the round one. I don't think you'll find one of these, or this one. This is like the traditional one, very traditional one out there in the world. There's not a lot of these, but this is like this really, whoa, this red one. It might not be painted red. It might have like a little logo on the top that it tells you like protect the dolphins, don't, go straight to the ocean. This one would be like the one I assumed you could find anywhere. Well, I assumed wrong. So your goal is to kind of find one like that looks like any of these. Are these your only options? No, not at all. These are just like the common ones that I thought. And then there was also an examples of storm drains that you can possibly select from in the document here that I went over and showed you. From lesson 5 from the doc. So this is like, your traditional one. This one's not painted. You're doing great. So like these are some of the options that you could have had. Right? Again, this is like your traditional one. This one, one of you sent me like a picture of this, but you don't have access to this because it's surrounded by like a gate. So don't choose a drain that looks like this because you're not going to have access to it. You need to have direct access to it, meaning like you can touch the drain, like you can touch it. That's how close you need to get to it. You will be literally touching it. So something that's behind, that's like, oh, it's down there, Miss Lamelia. You see right there, it's down there because the channel. It's like, yeah, but you can't get down there, right? So that wouldn't be a good one. That would be a good one to observe, especially when it rains, you can observe it, but I need you to actually literally go and touch it. So that wouldn't be a good one because it's surrounded. What is a storm drain? Let me hopefully clarify what a storm drain is. So you have drains inside your house. You have a kitchen sink drain. You have a bathroom tub drain. You have a shower drain. You have a restroom sink drain, right? So all of these are drains inside the house, right? When you wash your hands in the kitchen sink or you wash your hands in the restroom, it all goes down into a drain, right? So you should all know what at least a drain looks like, right? Now, what is the job of that drain? The job of that drain is to collect all the water from washing your hands, taking a shower, or washing the dishes, and it all goes through that drain, right? So your house doesn't flood, right? When I wash the dishes or take a shower, it doesn't rise with water and overflow into the floor, right? It all goes down the drain. So a storm drain does the exact same thing, but for rainwater. So it rains. Where is it going to drain into? It's going to drain into a storm drain. One of these. It collects the water and washes it away, right, from the streets. because some of you were turning in pictures of not storm drains. You guys were turning in pictures of like meters and sewer lines. So if you see an S on the lid, that's a sewer line. You 100% do not want to test that. That has sewer in it. Worse than the storm drain. Think about that. No. Others of you took pictures of like the water meter cover. Read the label. If it says like water meter, electrical, things like that, that's not a storm drain. If it only has one hole, one tiny little hole, that's not a storm drain. That's a cover to something. It has that hole, but it doesn't have a lot of holes, meaning that hole is just so that someone could stick a tool in there to open up the cover. And there's a meter or some sort of something inside. It's not a storm drain, okay? Okay, thanks, David. So you're looking for this. Like this has a lot of holes to collect all that. If you see this round one on the street, but there's no holes, that's just covering up like sewer pipes or some sort of pipe. It's not collecting water. It might have a little small 2-3 holes, but it's not meant to collect water. Okay. So some of you were sending me pictures of things that like, no, they're on the street. Yes, but they're not storm drains. Again, storm drain collects the water from the storm, like thunderstorm water, rain. That's the storm. Dumps water. Where does that water drain into? A storm drain. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Just based on the pictures that I got, maybe there were some misunderstandings. So what I did, I went to McFadden and I kind of drove around, I parked and I started to walk around the neighborhood. And on Ray Avenue, I saw this puddle of water. It was just standing water. And I so wanted to test it, wanted to dive in there and test that water. No, this probably came from someone washing their car or turning on the sprinklers. So right here, McFadden is right here. That's McFadden. And what I realized, and I took this picture because of this reason, right here, on this right here where the line is, it's a high elevation. And then all of a sudden, there is a decline in the street. So this, if I'm going here, I'm going up a hill, a little small hill, but it goes up. If I'm coming in like this car right here is coming in and it's going on a D. So if I was on a skateboard right here, I would be going down without any effort because this street kind of goes up. Why? Because when it rains, let's say it's raining right here. When it rains, here's my droplets. The water that hits this line, it will go into this neighborhood. The runoff, the receiving waters here, it will run off in this direction because of this little incline right here. And maybe some of you have crossed this street 1,000 times and you didn't realize it. But yes, the street is on a decline like this, and all the water is running this way. Some of you took pictures of like this and wanted these to be your storm drains. Nope, these are just covers. So notice that these right here don't have any holes, or they might have 1 or 2 holes, but that's just used to open it. So be careful, this is not what we want. But do you guys see how the street is going down? This is not a storm drain, that is a cover, okay? It's not a storm drain. So this is a closer view. Again, this right here is, whoops. This is McFadden's parking lot, right? How many of you have crossed this street 1,000 times, right? So what I noticed as well is that this street right here in the middle of the street, it's kind of like a U shape, like a upside down U. This is the high point on the street, right in the center of the road is the high point. So when it rains, and let's say it rains and the droplets are falling right here. So half of the rainwater would go here, and this half, if it's rain on this side, will go down over here. And it would not flood the middle of the road. And that's the whole point. So the streets are kind of curved so that the water will drain quickly away from the center of the road and then into these like little tiny channels. Okay. The concrete outlet, I think. Concrete outlet. I know they're called concrete something. So, and then the water will flow down the street in these, right? But if you take a look, if you're out in the street, any street, basically, not just the rate, but you should see that your street kind of is like kind of bent. And that's just to make the water flow into it, right? So I was, you know, again, taking a walk in the neighborhood, and then I saw this on the sidewalk, and I'm like, what's that? This is a drain. So it will drain from the house. It's not draining the kitchen sink or the restroom or anything like that. It'll drain like in the backyard. If you have a drain in the backyard, then it'll go into the street. Things like that. It might be draining the excess water from the soil. Some of these pipes have holes in them to let the water into the holes and then out through the pipe. We'll go over that in a couple of weeks. I just learned about those. So then I called my teacher, the one that trained me on this. And I'm like, hey, I walked the neighborhood that some of my students might live in. And honestly, I could not find a storm drain, your typical storm drain. All I found was like this. And I even walked Rate and I couldn't find one. And I didn't want to go on to Dyer, and I didn't want to go on to Warner because I wouldn't want you to go onto Warner or Dyer. Those are really busy streets. And maybe our storm drains are located there, but I don't need you to go on the streets. Okay. Those are really, really busy streets. I want you to find like a drain that's like in a neighborhood, like, you know, nice, quiet street. So I sent her a picture of this and I'm like, you know, if my students live in this neighborhood, for example, they're not going to find your traditional ones. I didn't find a round one, a rectangle one, things like that. So she said that we could adopt something that looks like this, because this also collects water and it will, you know, have trash and debris and sediment and different, you know, substance in it. So we could test this. So if you were unable to find a storm drain, you know, because but you honestly did walk around and you couldn't find one, see if you could find something that looks like this, where there's a lot of like these concrete like catch basins. They're small. They're like a small little channel, right? That, you know, collects all the water from your neighborhood. So this will also work. Okay. So now that I have realized by going into the neighborhood that's in front of McFadden, every street should have those, right? You're right. Every street does have them. But if you've already found your drain and I already approved it, use it, because beautiful. If you had a hard time finding a drain, check one of these out in your neighborhood. Take a walk this weekend. See if you can find one of those. Turn it in. Take a picture of it and let me see it. I still need to approve it. You're going to do a lot with the drain or the side of the street that you're going to adopt, a lot. So you want to make sure that you can go to it, let's say like every day, right? It's not too far away. And most importantly, it's not on a busy street. You are going to get down in there. You're going to have to like touch it, right? So you want to choose a drain or an area where, again, it's quiet and there's not a lot of traffic. I don't want you to choose one on Warner. There's way too much traffic there, right? So here's another option. So if you were having trouble, find something like this, right? Somewhere where you see that there's going to be a collection of water. I can even see right here, there's some sort of substance kind of dried up, but it's there, right? You guys see it right here. So wish I had, you know, my testing materials to see, what is this? What was poured into the street that eventually will go into the ocean, right? Is it fertilizer? Is it like oils or other liquids that are coming off the car? Car has gasoline and different things that coolants, chemicals that are in the car that do get released. So is that, I don't know, I'm totally interested to see what this is. So again, if you were having a hard time finding your traditional drain outlet. What is it called? Concrete ditch. Okay. Maybe one of like the ones I showed you today. I wanted to go into the neighborhood and see what you guys were dealing with. If I didn't do that, I would be like, what are you guys talking about? There's storm drains everywhere. What are you guys talking about? But because I went out there and I saw it, I'm like, oh, we might have a problem. You might have some in your neighborhood. I don't know. It depends. This program was written to be used at school campuses. And there's 1,000 drains on our campus. I had to walk around McFadden and locate the drains. And there are 1,000 drains all over campus. So when I do this with my class next year on campus, hoping everything works out and we do it on campus, there won't be an issue. Like we will find drains in masses. At home, I didn't realize it was so hard to find drains. It's unbelievable. Crazy. So if you found one, you're kind of lucky because I couldn't find one. Maybe I'll take a longer walk tomorrow, or maybe I'll go to the neighborhood on the other side of McFadden. Who knows? Speaking of McFadden, I actually went and I got a sample of the, oh no, not that one. What am I talking about? Cancel. Okay. This is the kit that you're gonna have to pick up from school. I have to look exactly if it's gonna be next week or the following week. So this is the kit that you're gonna pick up. I'm going to need these kits back. I have to use these kits over and over again. So no, you're not gonna keep them. So these, you see, has the SWIP internship. So inside of these kits, well, you'll find some chemicals in there: nitrate, phosphate, some pH, chloroform, some dissolved oxygen. I didn't realize there was such a thing. It's called dissolved oxygen. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a chemist. And then there's some BOD, which I'll tell you what BOD is later. So you're going to have all these chemicals and we're going to be sampling your water. So with this kit, if you take a sample of the water of your storm drain, we can test it and figure out what kind of chemicals are in your storm drain, which is pretty cool. We're going to be like little chemists over here. I do need this back. Once you check it out, I will check it out by numbers. Like, okay, Ty, you got kit number 1. Miguel, you got kit number 2. Vincent, you got kit number 3, for example. You know, when you check them out, you'll check them out that way. You'll be using all of the chemicals that are in this packet. The only thing I need back is the glass containers. These are made out of glass. This one's glass. This one's also glass. This one's glass. And then the plastic container. Obviously, you're going to be using these tablets, right? So when we're done with the experiment, then I'll have you drop these off at McFadden again. Sorry, you're going to have to go twice. One to pick up, one to drop off. I'll need 1, 2, 3, and then the container back. So 4 things. I can't, these are really expensive to recreate. These little, you know, even though you think like, oh, they're just like really small. Yeah, but they add up and they're expensive and they won't buy me anymore. So you'll check these out. You'll do the experiment. You'll just wash these out and then you put them back in there and you return the kit to me. And then next year I'll replace the chemicals and then the students will have a kit to use. So this 100% we do need back. You'll check them out and then you'll perform the experiments, you'll collect your data and then you turn it back in. So I wanted to bring it home so I could show it to you guys. And then I will let you know when the pickup date is, of course. I have to look at our schedule to see if it's next week or the following week that we get to do this test. Okay. So, but in order to do the test, you need to find a storm drain, right? So you have to make sure that you have a storm drain picked out. I've approved it because without a storm drain, there's no testing. What are you going to test? You don't have a storm drain. So you got to make sure you find a storm drain. Okay. What else? That's it, I think, for that. Okay. So here are some examples. If in doubt, send me a picture and I'll go like yes, no, which I have for some of you. Check your comments. All right, so we're moving on. This is lesson 6. You can find lesson 6 on the modules. Loading, loading, loading. So lesson 6. There are a lot of things to do for lesson 6. If you see on my screen, there are like 1,000 things to do. Today we're only going to be working on the doc, and then we're only going to do one assignment. Then these will be done next week. So if I open this, it will open up the lesson 6, which looks like this. You have access to it. Okay, so today you will begin your training as a water quality professional. You will learn skills that are necessary in the work of a WQP, beginning with safety and catch basin maintenance. So today we are going to learn about safety, okay? At the end of today, you will be taking a quiz showing me, proving to me that you understood the safety lesson. Okay, I have to teach you these safety rules before I have you go test something, before I have you go inspect at a closer distance your storm drain. Right now, I just had you walk the neighborhood, take a picture. That's cool. Next week, I'm going to actually have you get like really close to your storm drain. But before you get really close to your storm drain, I got to train you on some safety things. Some of it's just common sense. Some of you know it, but we need to get trained on this. The training is called OSHA training, OSHA safety training. And believe it or not, some of your parents have been trained in OSHA safety training. OSHA training is done if your job involves using tools, machinery, or you're like in a warehouse situation where like Costco, you know how they store things in Costco like really high. Those types of jobs, I'm only giving you a limited example, require the employer, the boss, to train the employees on safety. Okay. I am like your boss and you are the employees, the interns. So I have to train you on safety procedures. Okay. I want you to ask your parents tonight if they've ever been trained on OSHA safety trainings, OSHA. And believe it or not, you're going to be surprised how many people say yes. Maybe not their current job, but maybe a job they had before. As they were being trained the first couple of days, they had to go through an OSHA training. And their OSHA training is going to be a little bit different than yours because your OSHA training is based on stormwater and storm drains. Theirs is going to be based on whatever job they have or have. You know, it depends. Some don't have any OSHA training. Okay. Some of your parents have jobs that don't require the safety training. So it's going to be awesome for you guys to ask and realize like, oh, you really had to train, you know, or like, oh, you didn't have to do that. Oh, okay, cool. So your job doesn't require any hazardous materials, any tools, a warehouse, things like that. Or they're like, oh, no, when I was in high school or right after high school, I had this job. And yeah, I remember because we had a forklift or we had to use this chemical or, you know, this chemical was on the property. So even if your parents didn't have direct access to the chemicals, if certain chemicals are stored on their site, on their work site, they have to be trained on these OSHA safety training. Maybe when you guys graduate high school, you'll get trained and then you'll realize like, oh my gosh, in 8th grade, I was actually trained on this. But again, it's different for each job. They'll add more or they'll take away depending on exactly what tools you're going to be using and things like that. All right, let's get started on your training so you can pass the quiz. Oh, before, you know how sometimes, no, never mind. I'll do that later. Hold on. Why do water quality professionals need OSHA safety training? You guys are going to become water quality professionals. Yay. Someone can get hurt if we don't know how to safely handle stormwater and tools. So we got to train you on it. What is OSHA? Why does it exist? OSHA stands for Occupational Safety and Health Administration. It is an organization by the government that sets the rules for businesses to keep their employees safe. Without the rules for safety, more people could get hurt on the job. Okay. So depending on where your parents work, they may or may not have had to have OSHA training. Usually happens like the first or second day on the job. You guys, I'm training you because you guys are the interns and you're going to go out there and I got to make sure you are safe. What kind of hazards do water quality professionals deal with? Some examples of hazards. They come into contact with polluted water when taking water quality samples. When cleaning a drain, they can get hurt by the tools they use if they are not being careful. Okay. Now, there is a quiz, quote, quote, quiz. It's called the Lesson 6 OSHA Safety Training Quiz. It's already open for you. If you want to open it right now, you may. And then as I'm reading this to you, the first activity, you can start answering the questions. You know how when you take a reading test and the teacher might ask you, read the questions before you read the paragraph so you know what you're looking for when you're reading? This would be an example of that. You can open the quiz, and as I'm like you read the first question and then I start reading and you're like, oh, that's the answer. You can go back to the tab, answer the question, then come back to me. So if you want to multitask, if you don't want to multitask, you can just listen to me reading it and then go back and answer the questions. You have access to this. So if I go too fast, if I go too slow, you can go at your own pace. That's fine with me. What I'm going to be reading is everything in blue. I highlighted it blue so you know exactly what I'm reading and where you can find the answers. The answers to your quiz are basically highlighted in blue. They're just hidden. If you want to highlight it in a different color, make notes, whatever, all you have to do is click File, make a copy. It will make a copy for yourself, and that's how you can add comments, highlight, do whatever you want, because then you just made a copy for yourself, and you can have it forever and ever. All right. So again, if I go too fast, too slow, there it is. We're just doing the blue highlighted part. And we're going to stop where it says Tuesday, May 4th. So this is what we're going to be doing today. Drink some water before I get started. All right. Ready for your training? Okay. Number 1, hand tools and pinch points. In the SWIP internship program, interns might use tools to remove drain grates at the school site under adult supervision. To do so, interns must. Now, you will not be removing the drain grates out in the streets. So if you have a drain grate out in the streets, if your drain has a grate, you're not going to remove it ever, 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 ever. Do not. You're going to come across questions or scenarios where it's asking you, what if you remove it? If you will not. If we were on campus, we are allowed to remove those grates because it's on our campus. But because you're doing it out on public streets, we are not allowed to remove the grates. Okay. So please, 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 please do not remove the grates ever. Again, if we were in school, we were allowed to, but not out in public. Please do not. But I'm going to train you like if we were, but you're not. I'm going to train you like you are, but you're not. My goodness. Okay. Wear personal protective equipment, PPE. Interns must use PPE prior to any activity associated with using hand tools. The PPE we'll use is work gloves and safety glasses or goggles. Note, safety goggles should be worn over prescription glasses, right? Now in the year of COVID, we all know what PPE is, right? We all now see everyone wearing their PPE. Well, for PPE for the water quality professional, we need to wear gloves and safety glasses. You should inspect hand tools for safety. Any hand tool that is considered damaged should be reported to the teacher or an adult supervisor. So if we were on campus, we'd be using, scissors, pliers, screwdrivers, things like that. And this goes for any situation that you might be dealing with in the future. If you have a tool, if a tool gets checked out to you and it's broken, please report it. Please do not use a tool that is broken. It's dangerous. Beware of pinch points. Tools such as scissors, pliers have pinch points. The point at which two parts of the tool come together and pinch. Keep all body parts, especially fingers, away from pinch points. Another pinch point happens when lifting a drain off on the school site. Lifting the drain on one side and dragging it away from the drain opening will avoid pinching or crushing feet, toes, or fingers. So have your pair of scissors. A pinch point on a pair of scissors would be if I stick my finger here, in between here, the handles. This is called a pinch point because you can pinch yourself if you put your finger here. Okay, if you were to use pliers, the same thing. There are different places where you can pinch yourself and really hurt yourself. So when you're ever using a tool, even as simple as the scissors, make sure you're aware of the pinch points and stay away from them. If you were lifting the drain grate, you would lift on one side and then drag. We wouldn't just completely lift it up and drag it. One, they're pretty heavy. So, and then you can crush yourself, your fingers or your toes or your feet. So if you were to, but you're not, if you were to lift the drain, you lift it from one side and then drag. That decreases the possibility of crushing your feet, toes, and fingers. So you lift on one side and then drag it out, but you're not. But if you would, if you had the opportunity, lift and drag, lift and drag. All right. Hazardous communications. Clear and calm communication is helpful when dealing with safety issues and injuries. Work in groups of 2 or 3. Working in groups will reduce injury. One person observes the other and watches for any safety issues. Whenever you guys go and work with your drains, make sure there is someone else with you. If something happens, that other person could report it, okay? If it's your parents, fantastic. Brothers, sisters, awesome. Cousins, great. Neighbors, fantastic. So make sure that when you go out to do your experiments, that you have someone with you, okay? If something happens, there's someone there else that could call for help if needed. Follow emergency procedures, response procedures. In the event of injury to one person must stay with the injured person. A third person immediately goes to communicate with the teacher or other adult. The adult will determine the best course of action, which can include calling for emergency medical services. Always make sure, if you go in pairs, fantastic. And then the other person, if there's not a third person, you have your cell phone, you can call, or if you're injured, the other person can call. So just make sure that you are going with someone else. Don't go alone, please. Confined spaces. A confined space is any space that meets the following 3 criteria. Is large enough for an intern to enter, has limited means of entry or exit, and is not designed for continuous occupancy. The confined space standard requires employers to ensure that their workers and interns know about the existence, locations, and dangers that may not enter such spaces without authorization. So if there is a confined space at your parents' job, they were informed of it. Like, this is a confined space, do not enter. Only if you have authorization, you may enter. So if there is a confined space, we all need to be made aware of it as employees. For the SWIP internship program, we have identified the stormwater catch basin as an enclosed space. Cleaning the inside of the catch basin should only be done at school with your SWIP instructor. To engage in these activities, interns must. So if we were at school, we would be taking a closer look at a catch basin, which I'll teach you next time what a catch basin is. But at home, you don't have access to a catch basin, only on school site. But it would be considered a confined space. If we were at school and we'd be cleaning out a catch basin, I have to be there watching you do it. We would have to be wearing our PPE. Interns must wear PPE prior to any activity associated with our confined space. Work in groups of 3. Follow emergency response procedures. All right. Number 4, toxic and hazardous substance. For the SWIP internship program, we have identified the hydrochloric acid within the glass sample bottle that is used to test for oils and grease to be a hazardous substance. When stormwater sampling enters testing for oil and grease must adhere to the following safety procedures as they relate to the hydrochloric acid. I am not sending that home with you guys. That would be only if we were on campus, we would be dealing with a hazardous substance. So you are dealing with some chemicals here, but they're not as hazardous as this one. So we're not sending that home. So if we would store the materials properly. Glass bottles are to be stored in a cooler with a label on the bottle, including hydrochloric acid content. So you would label it to let everybody know that there's some sort of hazardous substance in there. You'll be wearing your protective equipment. Interns must use PPE prior to any activity with this acid. Following sample procedures, one intern is responsible for removing, holding, and replacing the cap tightly. An adult must be holding the bottle. So it's that dangerous that the adult is the only person allowed to actually hold it in their hand. A second intern will collect the stormwater with a glass scoop and fill the bottle to the shoulder of the bottle, being careful not to overfill. Follow emergency procedures, response procedures. In the event of an injury or spill, the intern collecting the stormwater must immediately communicate with another intern to request an immediate response. An injured intern must not leave the injured intern. An uninjured intern must not leave the injured intern or adult alone. The adult or teacher will determine the best course of action, which can include calling for emergency medical services. So this is if we were dealing with some heavy duty chemicals. The ones I'm going to send home are perfectly safe. Of course, you're not going to drink these, and you're going to be wearing protective gear, gloves. So, and of course, don't get this anywhere near your eyes, mouth, anything like that. Seriously. That concludes the safety training, right? So wear protective gear. If there's anything that happens, notify people. You're going to be, hopefully you have to go out with someone else, right? Make sure you take your phone with you. You're not going to be any confined space. You're not going to be working with any hazardous substance, but I still have to train you on it, okay? A lot of it's common sense. Okay, now I would like you to take your quiz. Your quiz is located here. Some of you might have started it. I have to go back and grade them. There was a mistake that I think I corrected during 5th period, but we'll see. And then question number 3 is asking you to do like a sentence, like a fill-in. Make sure you use a complete sentence. Don't use the word it or they. Kids are still using the word it. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh, can't believe it. I'm going to give you guys about 15 minutes to complete the quiz right now. If that means you have to go back and read something, or you're not sure of the answer, again, everything that's highlighted blue has to do with the quiz. Everything that's highlighted in blue has to be, your answers can be located in the highlighted blue section, okay? So you're taking the quiz. If you have any questions, let me know. And then the last 10 minutes, Ty is going to remind me to do the most important announcement of your life. Right, Ty? Cool. Awesome. I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes. 15 minutes have begun. You're doing the quiz. You finished early. Check on your other grades for my class. Yes, Diego. Thank you, Ty. What? Check your grades. Make sure, check your comments. If I didn't give you 100%, why did I take points off? You can always check. All right, I'm going to put this on pause.